What is up, everybody? This is the Well Nutrition Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Heskett, and this is episode 90. We are 10 episodes away from hitting number 100. With that being said, we finally have another guest back on the show. So today's guest is Julia Lerond. She is a coach with the Lifts with Alex team. She's a former professional figure skater who transitioned into the medical field by getting her bachelor's degree in exercise science and psychology in 2012, then continued to get her doctorate in physical therapy in 2015. So she has a really cool story. Obviously, being a professional figure skater early on had its own ups and downs and challenges, but she developed a passion for health and fitness that is much more relatable and sustainable. She also had the privilege to work with the Royal Caribbean as a performer straight out of high school after retiring from being a professional figure skater. And that kind of started her own journey where she spiraled downwards, being like super structured into binge eating, gaining close to 50 pounds in just 8 months, and then went through her own transformation journey. Because of Julia's background, obviously the physical therapy is cool, but also her background with psychology. She's an amazing mindset coach and works with clients with their mindset to help them reach their goals. Another cool thing was while she was getting her doctorate, she was able to work with NFL combine players and also the USA sailing team. So she has experience with that. Is it relatable to the audience of this podcast? Probably not. It's just something really fucking cool that she did. It's not very often that I hear someone say, like, I gotta work with the USA sailing team. I don't know if that's me. I just find it really cool. So I was like, we are going to talk about that on the podcast. And it's pretty brief. She worked with, helping them out in physical therapy setting, but it's still something I thought was really cool. But with that being said, I'm done talking. Let's get on with this interview with Julia. What's up, Julia?
Hey, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you doing?
It's good. It's sunny finally. It's been raining in Connecticut, so I am happy with some sunshine.
Yeah, same here in PA. Like it was pretty rainy, cloudy, and finally we're actually getting up to the 80s today.
Yeah, so are we. I know. I'm gonna try to spend as much time outdoors today.
Yeah,
but we'll see if that happens.
I'll get my dog out for an afternoon walk. Yeah,
exactly.
Great plan in theory. Let's see if it'll actually happen.
Yep.
All right. So you are a coach on the LWA coaching team. How did you get started with coaching? I know that is a giant rabbit hole, but
yeah,
the quick and dirty version. How did you get started with coaching?
For sure. And it is a long story, but I'll try to keep it as concise as possible. So I was a figure skater growing up. So obviously kind of the pressures of that and the pressures of maintaining a body size. I grew up with that starting from age of 4 all the way through when I retired at 18. So body size and composition and food and working out was always ingrained in kind of my like day-to-day life. Mm-hmm. And then I went to college. So college was a fun time. I regret nothing in college, but it was still college, right? So I came out of it and I was like, look, this is not who I am. This is not what I'm used to. Went through a few years of trying to just figure out things on my own, did random workouts as we all do when we're first starting a journey. And then I hired a coach and I was like, you know what? Something's got to go, like something's got to change. So I hired a coach. And through that journey, I was like, you know what? This is something that, I could do as a physical therapist. I was going through PT school at the time. And I was like, you know what? There's so many people around me that could benefit from what I'm doing right now. And it was just so eye-opening to me because it was things that I had never learned, not only from being in PT school and being in this medical environment, but even through growing up as an athlete. It was just so different looking at it from an adult perspective. So kind of started my own thing, started Dr. Wine and Wellness, mostly because wine is a non-negotiable in my life. So that's how that started.
Nice.
But I was a much better coach than I was business owner. So pivoted pretty quickly out of owning my own thing, joined LWA, and super pumped I did. It's been a great experience, a great team to work with. So yeah, that's the quick and dirty. It can be much longer than that, but
Well,
that's
we
where
got
we
plenty
are.
of time to talk about all the details getting there. So what was it like being a figure skater? Because that's
Yeah.
not something like, I don't know, in my area, like you don't hear about that very often.
No, for sure. And it's a crazy sport. I have to tell you, it is a crazy sport. You train anywhere from 6 to 7 to 8 hours a day sometimes. School was kind of an afterthought most days. I did virtual school before virtual school was cool.
Oh,
So
wow.
all of high school I did online, which is pretty wild. My public school, we actually did it through the public school, which is like way before, like beyond their times, if you will. I graduated in '08 from high school. So it was like before internet schooling was even really a
Yeah.
thing. They were
I'm
like, we
class
have
of
this program.
'09, so you were right
Yeah.
before me.
Yeah, we have this cool program. You want to do it? Because clearly you can't come to school and actually participate in real high school. So training was tough. It was, a full-time job commitment as a teenager. So I think it comes with its pluses and minuses, right? Figure skating as a whole teaches you so many amazing life skills that there's no way I would be where I am today without having that like starting point in life.
Mhm.
Obviously comes with a lot of challenges. I took my first in-class exam in college. That was fun. I didn't know what to do because I had never taken a test without having my book in front of me.
Oh, wow.
So,
Holy shit. That is
yeah, so that was
wild.
yeah, that was really fun. I was like, wait, like I don't get my notes, like I don't just get to copy things down. This is not how this works anymore. So fun experiences there. But you know, as from a figure skating perspective, I made it much further than most people do in their careers in skating. So I'm super fortunate in that regard. I got to travel around the world, see really cool places at an age where that's typically not the case. Um, I was a pair skater. So I had an amazing partner growing up, and he was 4 years older than me. So we started skating together when I was 11 or 12. And so he was 4 years older than me. And so I really grew up much faster than most kids do,
Mhm.
just because, we hung out together, 11 and 15 to 12 and
Yeah.
16 for 6 years. We skated together, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours a day. Went on vacations together. We're still really good friends, which is wonderful. But it taught me a lot of really great life lessons through that experience. Yeah.
Not a typical teenage upbringing.
No, very different. And it's funny because when I first, like in my early 20s, I was really kind of not necessarily regretful of that upbringing and that childhood, but I was like, man, I really like through college, I just like would hear these stories of high school, be like, man, I really missed out on that. Like I didn't have that experience. Like I
Mhm.
just as I've gotten older, I've very much appreciated it a lot more. I had opportunities to make my mistakes. I made them, as most kids do, but I probably made fewer of them
Mhm.
because I, was in a much more structured environment, and I'm probably better for it. So it's interesting going through that wave of like regret and missing out, and then realizing that I didn't actually miss out on anything and just had it differently.
It's just a different yes. It's like grass is
Yeah.
always greener on the other side when you're in your 20s, and then later on you're like, you know what? I didn't really miss out much. It was like stupid shit that I missed out on. High school drama. Um, so then you've worked with sailing athletes as well. I think you told me about
Yeah.
that. That's
Yeah. So that was a cool kind of transition into the PT world, I worked at a clinic down in Miami. I interned there, and then I ultimately worked there as well. It was a fully outpatient sports clinic, super tailored to athletes. I would almost argue like too much tailored to athletes. I am not a large human. I'm only 5'4". And so working with these like 6'5", 7-foot tall athletes, their legs are really heavy, in case you're wondering.
I can imagine.
It was quite a physical job. But yeah, so the clinic that I worked at, they worked with USA Sailing. So we had a lot of their athletes come through, either preseason, postseason, if they got injured at any point in time. My sailing terminology and knowledge is not great. So we're just going to keep it at that, preseason, postseason. And then we also worked with NFL athletes. So pre-combine, we did work a full combine as well. And just kind of intermittently, mostly kind of pre-season work. And then if they did get drafted, then obviously they left us and went to their respective teams. And then postseason, kind of post-hab, after they got destroyed during the weeks, would try to heal them back up to prep them for the next season. So that was pretty cool. Obviously with the NFL, we worked with athletes that were like up and coming. So then we would get really excited when they would get drafted. Nice. Had some baseball players, same idea. We would work with them, and then they'd get a call and be like, actually, we're out, which is kind of cool. Like just knowing that, you didn't necessarily participate in any of this, but you helped them in a way that allowed them to become better athletes and better people. So that was definitely pretty cool.
That's pretty awesome. That's a really cool experience.
Yeah. But I will never do it again. That's the thing. Like, it was a cool experience. I am not made for that.
Like at like 6'5", like those guys are just walking around at like 250 plus. So their legs are, like you said, and then muscle bound. So 250, 300 easy. And you're there 5'4", like, ugh.
Yeah, exactly. And they're like, it really hurts right here. I'm like, I can't feel through all of that muscle. I don't know what is wrong with you right now. Can I get a normal leg, please? They did not teach this in PT school.
They're like, you have to like take up powerlifting just to do your job.
Yep. I would be sore so many days of the week.
Just to be able to feel their hamstrings, I have to bench 315. So
exactly. And I get this giant hammer to like dig in there.
So what made you pursue PT in college?
That is a great question. I still ask that question every single day of my life. So I knew I wanted to be in the medical field. For better or worse, again, upbringing is a big topic. It can be a big rabbit hole. But for better or worse, I was always raised that you have to go to college, you have to get a degree, you have to get a degree in something that will make you money. Yep. And so out of those options, I knew that I could never be a lawyer. That just wasn't going to happen. That is way too boring for me. And so kind of the medical field really spoke to me in that regard, being an athlete and going through some PT growing up. I think kind of your typical story of getting into PT. But I also knew that I didn't really enjoy school that much. Ironically enough, I'm in an MBA program right now and haven't really stopped going to school, but that's a whole different story. But I like going through the options of what I could do in the medical field. I knew I didn't want to go to like full med school, because that is just, it's 4 years plus 4 years plus 4 years, and it's never ending plus 4 years. And that just didn't appeal to me. I really, in undergrad, bounced back and forth between PT and psychiatry, just because I really found like the mental side of medicine really interesting, and I still do, and I still read a lot about it. And that's where like that contemplation of, did I really like go into the right field? Because I feel like I study the mental side much more than I do the physical side now. But the reason that I went into PT was that it was 4 years of undergrad and then 3 years of grad, and then I was done. Made that decision about 3 years into undergrad because I was like, you know what, this is a lot. I just want to go live my life. And I was getting an exercise science degree in undergrad. I actually double majored exercise science and psychology because, again, I had no idea what I was going to do. So keeping my options open, I took way too many classes. That should have been my first indication that I actually didn't hate school as much as I thought I did, and I was actually pretty good at it. That I just did too many classes at once.
That's a lot of classes.
Yeah, and I minored in dance because that seemed like a good idea. I don't know. I got nothing.
How many credits were you taking a semester?
So my biggest semester, I took 8 classes. So okay. I think credits were 4, so 32 credits.
Jeez.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah.
That's aggressive.
I think it also helped that I didn't like my undergrad. So I just was like, I just want to do things that don't involve being involved in my school. So.
I mean, I got an exercise science degree and it's like the biggest joke of a degree.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like when I was an undergrad, I very quickly realized, again, I think growing up more mature than most people, I very quickly realized that an exercise science degree and a psychology degree gets you jack shit in life.
Yeah.
So I was like, these are fine and dandy. Like, this is great. But I can't actually do anything with either of these degrees that actually means anything. I could become a personal trainer. Great. I could have done that without going to school. Mm-hmm. With the psychology degree, I was like, you can't even really get a job necessarily that isn't super entry level and going to be making, $20,000 a year. Might as well go work at Target at that point. So What was the point of it? So I realized that very quickly. So I knew that there was more education that I needed to do past the 4 years. And so that's where that kind of contemplation went into play of, should I go into PT more? Because that's only 3 years. Or should I go into psychiatry? And unfortunately, to get into actual psychiatry and be a psychiatrist, you got to go to med school for 4 years because that makes perfect sense. So that was that. Retrospectively, I have always kind of kicked myself for not looking into becoming a PA a little bit more.
Okay.
Because PA is only 2 years post undergrad, and they make like at least double what PTs make.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's still, so the reason I didn't really want to as well go into like full medicine is I'm not big on blood, like at all.
Gotcha.
So not huge on it. That doesn't bother me, but I'm good not seeing it every day.
You'd rather not.
Yeah, exactly. So with being a PA, there's definitely plenty of specialties you can get into that are much more tame and peaceful and kind of on the nicer front of medicine. So if I was to do it all over again, I think I'd become a PA, but we're okay. We're happy. We are where we are. I have a, great life. Can't complain. So I think that was also a longer story than anticipated, but
it's totally fine. I always said if I went back, I would, instead of getting my degree in exercise science, I would get in biology.
Yeah.
I would go down that route. Because I was kind of the same. I was like, what do I want to do? I want to go into something that makes me money, but I didn't want to go into the medical field at all because I didn't want to do the 4 years. And then it was like, exactly. I got my undergrad. I'm like, I was just like, I'm done with school. I'm happy.
Yeah. Well, I think it helped me. So I took, we can kind of backtrack a little bit as well. I took a year off between high school and college to work on Royal Caribbean. So I worked as a skating performer on Royal Caribbean for a contract. Nice. Super cool experience, like wouldn't trade it out for the world. Again, getting to travel, getting to see the world, getting to make some of those mistakes that you would typically make in high school and college in a much more confined environment, which was very good. I had my first sip of, true alcohol when I worked on the ship, and I didn't have to drive anywhere. So that was great.
Yeah, literally you're on a ship.
Yeah, exactly. So it was a really cool experience. I think that, if people have the opportunity to take that year off, and do something like that, it made a world of a difference going into college. Just put me in a little bit better of a headspace where, when there were parties in college, I was like, you know what? I've already done that. I'm good. I'm just going to stay in tonight. And that's maybe where my homebodiness kind of started as well.
I mean, yeah, because I imagine some of those staff parties get a little crazy.
They do. Oh, absolutely. They do. I mean, we're all confined to a ship for 8-month contracts. So it's going to get rowdy.
Once you get a little bit of freedom, you're taking it.
Yeah. Well, and it was also my first time ever leaving home. Like, my parents were my skating coaches. I was finally like out of the confines of the training world. So yeah, it was a fun 8 months. I definitely gained 40 pounds in 8 months. Don't recommend. But like I said, good experience. Wouldn't trade it for the world.
Was that just because you had like unlimited access to food?
Well, yeah. And like getting out of that structured environment growing up, I was like, all right, cool. I got no one telling me what to do. I got no one telling me what I can and can't have. It would be interesting to like reverse and be a fly on the wall during that contract to see like what choices I actually truly made and like how they impacted my, contract, if you will, and my later life. Because I do believe that everything happens for a reason, and that, those 8 months really taught me a lot about myself and where I truly needed to do some inner work. That, maybe eating a full bag of Tostitos and a full container of salsa at midnight in bed, maybe not the best decision that you could have made. But it happened on multiple occasions. So it would be fun to go back and like just like witness that time frame in my life.
Not recommended. No.
Not recommended. Yeah. And
but we've all done that.
Like, yeah.
We've all done it. Yeah. There's what was one of the things my wife and I refused to buy is like these paleo puff things, and they're the cheddar flavor. We just don't buy it.
They're like waffle thingies. They're like little.
No, they're almost like Cheeto shaped.
Oh, okay. Oh, hippies?
No, it's called paleo puffs. That's what the bag is called. They are called paleo puffs. And it was like, oh, it's a healthier version. It's like $5 a bag. We were at a point we were buying two. I was like, why are we spending $10? And then we eat 3/4 of a bag, and then we leave a quarter because we're like, we shouldn't finish that. Like we've already had 8 servings. We just stopped buying that.
That's where they get you. And those things are so damn good. So yeah, no, we always have hippies in our house. I think same idea.
Probably.
They're like the vegan version of Cheetos. And my husband's a pilot, so he always has them on his plane. And so he orders them, and then ironically enough, the expiration date on them is actually pretty quick. I don't know what ingredients are used in them, but they do expire pretty quickly. And so for his plane, he has to ensure that all of the food on there is obviously within expiration, but they don't eat the food as quickly as it expires. So we'll get all the expired snacks, which is a good thing and bad thing. Like there's nothing wrong with them. They're not truly expired. I don't know why these dates are on some of these snacks, but for better or worse, they end up in our house. And I'll come home with bags of these hippies, and they're so tasty. So
you gotta hide those.
It's a weak point in my life, but they're very
good. Those snacks are just limited in our house. Like, okay, we have like a small box. Like my wife bought the Annie's like chocolate chip cookie bites for my daughter. She's like, so really? Good. I bought them for myself. I was like, yes, I know. Absolutely. She got them on Sunday. It is yesterday we had the last of them. Like it did not last. Yep. Like my daughter got a few cookies out of it, but we ate most of it. Like, we can't buy this because we eat it too fast.
Yep. That's the hard part with Costco as well. If you Costco, BJ's, Sam's, any of the above, when there's like this giant 30-pack of like your favorite snack, you're like, this is probably a bad idea. I'm gonna put this in my cart.
That was when my wife brought home the Tate's chocolate chip cookies, and I looked at him like, why did you bring this home? Like, We managed, because we'll keep ourselves on track of like who opened the last package. Because there's
Love that.
little individual sleeves in there. So it's like once you
Yep.
pop it open, there's only 5 cookies. So it's like she'll have 2, and they're not that high calorie. If you open up a package and you eat all like split between 2 people, it's like 200 calories a person. Like that's not
Yeah.
bad for a snack. But it's like,
You absolutely
wait,
do my favorite thing. I always look at a package and I'm like, all right, let me multiply all of the servings. And what is this total package going to cost me?
yes.
Because I know that I'm going to have more than the one measly serving that they're saying. So let's do the math on the full thing.
Yes, the full thing. So it's like, but then it'll be like, wait, who cut into the cookies? That's my wife's like, that's cutting into my cookies for coffee in the morning. Why are you doing that late at night? Like, oh crap. So we kind of keep ourselves in check with that. But some of the other things, I'm trying to think of something we got at Costco is like, we're never buying that again. That's just we ate it way too fast. But there's so many snacks like
So
that
many
Costco.
snacks. So many snacks. We're honestly really bad with Celsius's and Costco because then they're just in our house and I'm like, well, I'm just gonna go grab a Celsius. It'll be great. Whereas if they're not in our house, like we just don't have them available and I'll go have some water and it's fine.
It gets sweet, tasty, and it gives me energy.
Yeah, exactly.
Why am I
The
shaking?
Celsius aren't even that bad, but
no, they're not. It's only bad when you're like, wait, how much caffeine did I have today?
Right. I had 2 cups of coffee. I had some pre-workout, and I have Celsius. Then
it's like cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. Huh, I had close to a gram of caffeine.
Yeah, right. Thankfully, I can fall asleep sitting here, so sleep is never an issue for me.
I'm pretty like if I have caffeine in the evening, I can usually fall asleep, but it's still one of those things like we know it still affects our sleep quality.
Right.
So
Oh yeah.
I'll get to sleep, but it won't be the best sleep. Because I always need like some caffeine in the afternoon. I just have to make sure like, oh, it's 4:30. I haven't had my caffeine yet. Cup of coffee. Like, that's a problem.
Yeah. I spent a month in Europe this summer in Portugal, and it was like the most amazing caffeine location because in Europe in general, it's customary that after a meal you have espresso. It's just normal. Like they don't ask you if you want dessert. They ask you if you'd like some espresso. And so of course, European espresso is just so tasty and so delicious. So
yes.
I would have an espresso throughout my day. In the morning, I'd have a cappuccino, then have an espresso after lunch, an espresso after dinner, maybe an espresso somewhere sprinkled in there. It just felt so good. And then I came back to the US. I was like, oh man, where's my espresso?
Let's get an espresso maker.
I know. I told my husband that. We have a Nespresso, but not the same.
It's close, but it's not the same. That's what my brother has. My dad has the Breville espresso maker. That was really.
We were looking at that one. Yeah. And I say might, but as soon as we have something on our brains, it will happen. It's just a matter of time. So
that'll be my next coffee investment is get that because I
well,
love a good espresso.
Whatever you want. Yeah. And then if you do want a bigger cup of coffee, then you just add in some water and ta-da, you have a bigger cup of coffee.
Well, I'm a coffee snob. Not as much as my brother, so I have like all the pour over stuff and all the other. So I'll do that for a bigger cup of coffee, but there's something different about a good espresso.
Yeah, for sure. We're a little too lazy for that. We're very much on the Nespresso train. We have a French press and we have like a cold brew system thingy, but I don't remember the last time they were pulled out of the cabinet. So.
Okay, mine's pulled out. So because I don't have an espresso maker, I have the Italian like mocha pot thing. That's my espresso every day in the afternoon. My wife hates it because it's a pain in the ass to clean.
Yeah. I think that's why we don't use the French press.
So why is this in the sink again? Because I use it every day. She's like, "Can you please clean it?" I can't right away because it's hot. So it's like in the sink when she gets home.
Yeah, I think ironically our French press has been used more for filtering corks out of wine than it's been for actual French press.
That's fair.
So if you ever open a bottle of wine and they break the cork and you have to push the cork into the wine, use a French press, pour the wine in, press it out, it gets rid of all the cork. life hack.
That's good because my dad's a wine collector as well,
Oh,
so we get that every
yeah.
once in a while where it's like, oh,
Yeah, and some of
oh,
those older wines, like those corks are soaked and they will break. And then you're like, this is an expensive bottle of wine that I don't know what to do with now. So yeah, French press works great.
we've used a coffee filter before,
Mhm.
but the French press would probably be more neutral because I'm sure the coffee filter imparts some sort of flavor to it.
Likely, yeah. No, this didn't like change the flavor at all. You still get like teeny tiny particles that like kind of seep through, but much more, you know, manageable than a full cork in your wine.
Way better than full. Just let it settle because it probably needs to breathe anyways if it's like that old. So
Yeah, yeah. We're not good at that. We're really not. We're like, we opened a bottle of wine, we want it now.
what? So my dad, it's 2 bottles of wine get open when that happens. It's like this one needs to breathe, this one doesn't. That's where we're starting.
Love that.
So really bad when it's only 2 people, but when it's like a
I
fam,
mean,
I mean, good slash bad. If you're watching your calories, it's bad. If you're having
right,
a fun time on the weekend, it's fantastic.
right, exactly. So
So it's like the one that needs to breathe is like the dinner wine, and then it's appetizer wine. So you have your aperitif.
yeah, yeah, we do that as well. This is
Yeah.
accurate. This is a true statement.
Yep. That's how the wine that needs to breathe works.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. Yep.
Because
I
my
feel
wife,
I feel him there.
yep, my wife and I are bad too. Like if one needs to breathe, like the first glass, you're like, screw it, we're just drinking. Then the second glass, you're like, nah, we should have waited because this is definitely
We
better
should have
now.
waited. Yeah.
But we're not. So the 2 bottle thing works way better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, while we're on wine, so wine's a non-negotiable for you. How do you make question I get all the time and I talk to clients about all the time is including alcohol in their diet. How do you go about keeping alcohol in while staying quote unquote healthy or losing weight?
Absolutely. So if I'm in a fat loss phase, I have a very golden rule of 2 by 2. So I can have 2 drinks 2 times a week. That keeps me under control where I know that I can still enjoy a glass of wine. And when there's a glass of wine, I know that there's going to be two. So
Same.
like
Same.
if we're opening a bottle of wine, there are 4 glasses in a bottle. We're going to finish it. So trying to argue with myself, no, you can have 1 glass, you can't have the second glass. I know for me personally, it's just not going to work. We're going to finish the bottle. I need to make sure that I allow myself that that kind of luxury, I suppose. So 2 by 2 is what is my rule. 2 drinks 2 times a week. And the way that I track them is I'll typically track them as carbs because MyFitnessPal is terrible at accounting for calories of alcohol and accounting for alcohol in general. If you type in red wine, white wine, whatever, seltzer, beer, it doesn't do a very good job of actually accounting for the calories in the beverage. I've had many times when folks will enter in, a seltzer and it'll say 100 calories and then it'll actually say 0 grams of carbs and like 0 fat, 0 protein, obviously. And I'm like, well, where did those calories come from? So my tracking is interesting, and I learned this from my first coach. Is I track it as a carb. Each glass of wine I consider as 150 calories. I just use that as an average. And I'm honest with myself that a glass of wine is truly a glass of wine, not, 3 glasses of wine, because that's what fits in my glass. So I am kind of honest with myself in that regard. And then I take that 150, I divide it by either 4 or 9, depending on if I'm using it as a carb or as a fat. And then I enter that number into MyFitnessPal as a sugar if I'm counting it as a carb, or as olive oil or butter if I'm counting it as a fat.
Okay.
So that way I'm just using kind of the pure carb or fat number. The calories are added in, the grams are added in there from a balance standpoint. And I found that to be the most successful because then If I'm a little bit lower on a fat day, I can count it as a fat. If I'm a little lower on a carb day, I can count it as a carb. And then it balances out to that 7 grams for alcohol. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
Chronometer does a better job. So when you plug in wine or beer, it pops up with the carbs, but it also pops up with alcohol. So on that day, it shows you how many grams of alcohol are there.
Nice. Yeah,
which
I haven't
is
used
nice.
that one. So yeah.
It's definitely harder to get started with.
Yeah.
You need more tech savvy for chronometer. I love it because I like nerding out on all the info, but at the same time, I'm like, it can be a real pain in the butt because sometimes you'll adjust the calories, but it doesn't adjust the macros to the.
Got it. Yeah.
The macros don't line up, so you have to like adjust 2 things.
Yeah.
Don't love that.
Yeah, and it would be nice to like actually be able to see like alcohol calories, because it can be really eye-opening. Like when I'm not in a fat loss phase, I pay a little bit less attention to that rule. Woo, can't talk this morning. My kind of regular maintenance phase rule is that during the week, I don't drink. I think that's a decent rule. A couple non-negotiables within that. I am on a wonderful nerdy bowling league on Monday nights. And during bowling league, it is customary to drink during bowling league. Some weeks I don't just because I don't want to. That is a personal choice. You grab a water, you're totally fine. No one will shame you. But, having a beer, having a drink during bowling, that's just kind of our jam. We do it every Monday. So that's a Monday thing. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, for sure. Those are non-alcohol days. My husband knows that. He's very well aware of my guidelines, my, set points there. And then on the weekends, because I don't have this like strict alcohol is bad, alcohol is going to make me fat, like I can't have it, because of that mindset and because I don't necessarily restrict myself on the weekends, it also then becomes a null and void point because some Fridays I don't want to drink. Like there's I just don't want to, so I don't. Same thing on the weekends, like Saturday, Sunday. If I'm just home and cleaning, what am I going to do? Like I'm not going to drink. It's not like I'm waiting for the weekend to drink because I'm like finally allowing myself to do it. So I think that mindset is a little bit different even maybe that I had, 5-6 years ago, where I was like, I'm really trying to watch my calories and like can't have alcohol. And then on this weekend, like you look forward to, you're like 3 weeks from now, I can drink. And then that day comes and you have 16 drinks because you were waiting for it. Yeah. So I think having that like little mindset shift of it's okay, like it's allowed, it's part of my life, I enjoy it. Am I going to have a Bud Light? No. If I'm going to have a beer, I'm going to have a beer that I actually enjoy. If I'm going to have a cocktail, I'm going to have a cocktail that I truly enjoy and savor it and, have a good time with it, spend time with friends and family. And it's not anything like wild and crazy because it's not restricted in my life at all.
That's what I always recommend to clients is you can like drink what you're thinking about, like Bud Light. Like you can drink the lower calorie things, but do you actually enjoy that? Or are you just drinking because it's low calorie, like the seltzers, light beer, stuff like that? If you like that, great. I don't.
Yeah.
I absolutely do not. If I'm going to go all in on not a skinny cocktail, I'm going to go all in on a good cocktail, or I'm going to have a nice craft beer and I'm going to drink 1, 2, maybe 3 versus like 6 seltzers.
Right. Exactly. And at the end of the day, like if that's your jam and that's what you want, fantastic. Another example is, we used to live in Florida and we would have beach days. Many people have beach days.
Yes.
They can be camping days. They can be, holidays. They can be whatever kind of full day events you can think of. For those times, and to this day, have a great rule of 1 alcoholic beverage to 1 water. Yes. So every time I have a drink, like whatever that drink may be, whatever I enjoy. And most of the time in those scenarios, it is more of that like lower calorie, lower, alcohol volume, just because I know I'm going to be drinking all day. So I'm not going to have, a 12% beer. I'm likely going to have that seltzer.
You're not going to drink like 12% stouts all day long on the beach?
No. Ironically, I have done that before. It didn't end well.
I was going to say, no way.
That was a long time ago and I don't remember it. So we're just going to leave it at that. I don't think it was a stout. I think it was an IPA. But yeah, it was a great day, never to be done again. But with that experience, I do one alcoholic drink and then a full glass of water. And by a full glass of water, I truly mean a full glass of water. It can be, a polar seltzer. It can be a Spindrift. It can be, just water. It can be water with Crystal Light. Use your imagination. But some sort of water, and it has to be at least 12 ounces. That becomes harder throughout the day, right? So 12 ounces all of a sudden looks like 4 ounces, but the 12 ounces has to stick to the plan. And I think that's a great strategy, especially when you're hanging out with friends. You have that kind of party environment. Whether it's truly a party or not doesn't really matter. Just an environment where alcohol is flowing. To have that breakdown of one drink, one water, one drink, one water. And at the end of the day, you'll find that when you used to have 6, 7, 8 drinks during the day, because that's very easy to do, all of a sudden now you've narrowed that down to 3 or 4 because you've balanced it out with water. And in those scenarios, water does go down slower. So,
it does.
So it takes you longer time to get through the water, which is a good thing.
Especially if you do the seltzer water.
Yeah.
If you do that, it definitely takes you, because you can't chug that. It's not like, okay, I'm going to crush this to get to my next drink, which is something I've done. I'm like, okay, I want another beer now. I follow the same rules. So I'm going to crush this bottle of water and then go into the next one. Then I'm like running to the bathroom.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're like, that was a poor decision as well.
All right, maybe dump it like 36 ounces into my system all at once. Not a good idea.
Yeah, exactly. No, and I've gotten really good as I've gotten older. As I mentioned, I'm a big homebody. We do now game nights with friends where it's a little more classy and adult-like. And so we drink classy cocktails with game night. And so same rules apply in those situations where I'll have one drink and then I've gotten really good at creating mocktails. So I squeeze my own juices and I make myself a little mocktail because again, I have set my own boundaries and I know like what my desires and goals and, limits are. And so I create little mocktails for myself. They look just like the drinks that I just had. Nobody has to know if they don't want to. And most of my friends know. They always laugh because they're like, I literally can't tell if you're drinking or not. Like, good, that's the point. That's awesome. Been a great strategy as well.
There's a place, because I really like craft cocktails. There's a place in Portland, Maine called Venice Fizz House, but they started as a non-alcoholic bar.
Nice.
So they have all these recipes, since you like mocktails, all these recipes on their website for mocktails. But we went, because we go up to Maine almost once a year. So we went there to get a drink, and I was like, the guy's an absolute nerd when it comes to cocktails and stuff. So I'm like, I'm going to get a Negroni because that's my favorite drink, but I'm going to get the mocktail Negroni. Taste almost exactly the same. I'm like, how did you do this? He's like mixing all these. It's not truly non-alcoholic because he's using bitters, which have a little bit of alcohol in it. Right. But
I do use bitters for my mocktails.
I mean, at most, probably 2% alcohol.
I don't even think they're that much. I think they're like 0.5%.
Some of them are like 50% alcohol, but you're using like a drop.
Yeah.
So it's like once it's diluted down because he like mixed it into water and stuff. So I'm like, this is really, really good. I don't know how he doesn't have that recipe online because there is a lot of ingredients used. But I'm like, this is amazing. How does this not have any alcohol in it?
Yeah.
So if you like mocktails, that's definitely like a place to check out.
I'll definitely check it out. Yeah.
They have a awesome online shop. My wife gets me stuff from there usually on Christmas.
Nice. Yeah, no, I'll definitely have to check that out. Yeah, it's I just find it to be a good strategy. Like I also alcohol is fun, and like I think you and I both agree here that we drink alcohol because it tastes good to us. And we enjoy the experience of it. But I am way past the age where I find it enjoyable to just get hammered and, wake up in the morning with a slamming headache. I have things to do. So I want to enjoy my beverage, go to bed, and to wake up refreshed. So having the flexibility and the knowledge of mocktails is really helpful there.
Definitely. I'm past that because I have kids and it is miserable.
True. Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
6:30, 7 o'clock comes real quick and you're like, oh my God. Meanwhile, they're like, wake up. Okay.
Like, can I just give you some bourbon and you go back to sleep, kid?
No.
No,
They probably just work in the opposite way anyways. They'd probably just get ramped up.
Probably turn into a college kid sooner.
Like, oh no. So we got a little bit of time left. What I want to talk about is how, because you have that background in psychology, and I know how you coach with LWA, some of the mindset stuff. So you mentioned it a little bit about mindset around alcohol. But what's some mindset things you need to overcome with a lot of the clients coming into LWA coaching that you do in, like, say, the first 90 days?
Yeah, I think the hardest mindset is overcoming in the first 2 to 3 to 4 weeks. So you hire a coach, super excited. You're like, yeah, I got this. Here we go. Model body incoming. And then 2 weeks later, you realize that that's going to take much longer than you anticipated. That might not be a realistic goal. We may have already shifted into a whole different sphere of what coaching really means for you in those first few weeks. And so working through some of that initial excitement, harnessing it, and then moving it into a direction that's actually realistic for each client, I think is really interesting because a lot of people go into coaching to lose weight, to feel better about themselves, to gain strength, to, see those muscles in the mirror. I do that because I really like looking at back muscles myself. And do I have that muscle there? So a lot of people go into coaching and they're like, all right, I got a coach. It's going to happen now. Forgetting sometimes that a coach is great. We provide the accountability, the knowledge, the information, the setup, the starting point. But number one, you still have to do the work. So that isn't a given. If you don't start putting together routines and habits and that piece of it, it's still not going to happen no matter how much I tell you what to do. Mm-hmm. I can't force a muscle onto you. Unfortunately.
Unfortunately, it'd be awesome if we could.
I know, that would be really cool. But kind of working through that transition of excitement into true work and true changes, I think is really the hardest part from a mindset perspective. Human nature will tell you that initial excitement is great, but it's also terrible. Mm-hmm. Because you're like, this is magic. I'm going to do this. And then a week later, you're like, wait, that was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. And so how do you use that difficulty and that fact that you started working out for the first time, so now you can't sit on the toilet and you can't walk up the stairs because I made you do some squats? And how do you harness that into a routine, into a habit, into something that becomes second nature to you, something that becomes just part of your life? And that's kind of the back end of the mindset piece, where it's so cool to see clients get to that point where they don't even have to think about going to the gym. It's just part of their day. Mm-hmm. They don't have to think about how much protein they have on their plate because they've tracked enough and they can look at a plate and be like, yeah, this is, give or take 500 calories, about 30 grams of protein. Great, cool, good meal. Getting people from that initial excitement to that sustainable set point is just so cool to see. And so much of it is on the psychological front. So helping people through those challenges as they hit them is just, it's so neat.
What are some of the common challenges people have along that journey? Because I agree, once you can get a client to that stage, it is so easy for their life to get all their health and fitness goals. But getting there is the hardest part. So what are some of the challenges and how do you overcome them?
For sure. One of the most common challenges is plateauing. When people hit a plateau, they're like, we saw this progress, everything was great, and now we'll just call it a plateau on a scale because that's the easiest one to use as an example. We had this nice little downward trend, and then we kind of flatline. And so overcoming that from a mental perspective is tough because we always want to see progress and we always want to see that improvement. And what I always work through with clients is, can that downward trend continue infinitely? No, right? So that downward trend has to stop somewhere. We cannot go down to zero. That is just not a thing. We are still humans. We need pounds on us to be human. And so looking at it from that perspective and seeing where you started, where you are now, if we haven't reached our goal, that's fine. But maybe that's your body telling us, hey, we need a little breather. Let's kind of hang out here. Let's see how things go. Let's adjust maybe a little bit of movement, see how your nutrition is feeling. Do we need to bump you up a little bit to give your body a little bit of that break to then continue down our journey? And so working through that can be challenging because, again, human nature will tell us, well, we've made success doing what we just did. We're just going to keep doing that. When in reality, that's not usually how it works. I think out of all of my clients, I've maybe had 2 that have started at the top, worked their way down to their goal, and then they were happy with that. There's always that up and down, a little plateau, maybe a little up, maybe a little down. And so from a mental mindset perspective, it's really interesting reminding folks where they started, how that journey has looked, where they maybe need to hang out for a little bit to then put together a game plan moving forward. And that can be tough, for sure.
I always say it looks kind of like a stock chart going down through your weight. You can draw a trend line once we get data, but in the meantime, the week to week, if you're not looking at the long term, you're like, I'm up, I'm down, I'm up, I'm down, I'm the same. What the hell's going on?
Yeah, and on the scale topic of scale weight, there are just so many factors that people forget to consider.
Just a few.
Yeah, with the scale, right? And this is obviously no news to you. You've seen it. We've all seen it from a coaching perspective. But reminding folks that, hey, maybe you just moved. Maybe you just changed jobs. Maybe you broke up with your boyfriend. Maybe you have a new boyfriend. Maybe you just got married, went on a honeymoon, went on vacation, all of these kind of life events. Those are all going to affect our nervous system and our stress response and the internal inflammation that our body kind of expels. And that is all weight. It's not fat, but it's weight.
Yes.
And so the scale does not differentiate between, did you have a muffin yesterday or did you not sleep well yesterday? And so having that scale is just one data point. I also find super important to remind folks, hey, let's look at your pictures. You see this difference between the 2 days? Like, isn't that pretty cool? Even if the scale is telling us a totally different story. If we're doing measurements like, hey, let's measure your waist again compared to, 3 months ago. Hey, isn't that pretty cool? So with that plateau, also reminding folks that it's just a data point. The fun one that people always forget is weather. So if it's raining outside, you're going to be heavier, mostly because of atmospheric pressure.
Interesting. What's like the percentage of weight increase? I actually didn't know that.
It's very little. Yeah, it's very little. It's like 0.1, 0.2%.
But if you combine that with a bunch of other things.
Yeah, exactly. Like, And the weather one it's a funny one. It doesn't make much of a difference on a scale, but I use it as an example of things that are completely out of your control, but you're still looking at that number. And some people can be super critical about that number because they're like, oh no, I gained half a pound since yesterday. I'm like, but did you? Let's look at the factors that caused that.
I'm totally turning that into Instagram reel.
Yeah, do it.
I didn't know that. I'm totally going to look that up, and that's a new Instagram reel.
Absolutely. And it's just like when grandma says my hip hurts because it's raining, that's a real thing.
That is
all
a real
that
thing.
Atmospheric pressure, it causes pressure on the joints, and that same pressure will cause just a very slight little bump up.
Everybody knows about the joints. It makes sense about the weight. That just makes sense now. I'm like,
very little, but yeah.
Like my left knee with its injury, every time it's like really crappy weather, there it is. Like, oh, hello.
Yeah. I know. The older I get, my left hip is like, hello, it's gonna rain. Like, stop it.
Yeah,
I can see it's raining. You don't need to tell me.
My injuries: left knee, right hip.
Yeah,
right hip likes to get a lot of sciatica, thanks to deadlifting, and then left knee is from
improper deadlifting,
ego deadlifting, and then left knee's a Muay Thai injury.
Yes.
Yeah, little meniscus tear in there.
Lovely. And I'm sure you have done nothing about it.
Yeah, as a coach, actually no, I did get it looked at. Okay. I have a PT
That's more
friend.
Than most people.
I did get it looked at, and they're like, you don't need surgery. I'm like, cool, I'm good then. And then I did like my own rehab, which was not the smartest thing, but
as a PT, I'm very much the same way. Like, I'll get injured and then I'll just be like, it's fine, I'm fine, it's no big deal.
Yeah. Meanwhile, a client like stubs their toe, you're like, go get looked at. We're not actually like that, but
yes, I'm the worst patient.
Hey, it's my wife's a nurse, and you know who are terrible people about getting like blood work done? Nurses.
Yep.
Awesome. So unfortunately, I would love to dive more into mindset, but I actually have a call coming up right now with my coach. So I have to jump off. Okay. So we'll have to do a part 2. Terrible. Part 2. I know. Where can people find you?
Absolutely. So Instagram is my best form of communication. I'm still on Facebook. I'm still old like that, but I'm much more on Instagram. So Dr. Julia Lerond on Instagram. I believe my profile is public. I don't know. I haven't looked at that in a while. But either way, you can message me.
Perfect. So Instagram, go give Julia a follow. And then obviously you can find her with LWA Coaching, which those links will be down in the show notes.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. Hey guys, thanks for tuning into today's episode. As always, make sure to go down to the show notes and give Julia a follow. Also, while you're at it, make sure to give the show a rating, leave a review. If this helps the show get out to more people, it helps with the whole algorithm and promoting. So if there's lots of reviews, 5-star reviews, or just people listening, then the show gets pushed out more and it's easier for more people to find. So if you enjoy the show, I would appreciate it. Just take 10 seconds, give a 5-star rating or 4-star or 3-star. That also helps me like, okay, I need to dial things in and get better. And then if you write a review, if that's a possibility, I don't know if it's available on all the podcast platforms, but some of them you can leave a review. I do read those on a weekly basis when they're left. So that is also always appreciated. Please do that, as that is a huge help. And it's one thing, like when I'm looking for new podcasts, I do read those. So it helps the podcast get out there. Thanks, guys. Again, go give Julia a follow.